All right, welcome back to episode 5 of the Cash Flow Corner with Amanda Larson today from AMA X Equity.
Hi, Aaron. Hi, Jacob. Thanks so much for having me on your podcast. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we've both been pretty excited about getting our first guest on. That's what we've been talking about the last couple episodes, and for us, it's a good chance for our listeners to get somebody else's perspective on the world of commercial multifamily real estate investing. So we're excited to get somebody else's opinion on here, and we're excited to get this episode underway.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited. Hopefully, I can add some value to your listeners, and we can all learn from each other.
Yeah, I know we kind of like what Jacob was saying. We've been talking about having some guests on, so excited for you to be our first guest. And I guess really the first place to start would really maybe if you want to share a little bit more about your background and really how you got started into real estate investing and real estate syndication.
Yeah, sure. I think like a lot of real estate investors, particularly syndicators, we all have a journey. And for a lot of us, it starts at that purple book that many of us have read at some point or another that, switches a switch in our minds and our thinking. So that's part of it. But I'll back up a little bit further and just say, I grew up in a family that always owned single family rentals. So I was around real estate investing my whole life. So I saw it going on. I recognized the value. That said, I never thought I would be a real estate investor. I saw the landlord, maintenance, tenants side of it and didn't see the syndication space until much, much later. So I was introduced, like I said, to real estate investing early on, and then I started to dabble in it again around 2010. I bought a single family rental and had some help managing it. So it was really not that hands-on investment, tenants, toilets, problems, and continued to dabble in real estate, and then fell upon it was a meetup. And there was someone speaking on syndications. And really, that's when the light bulb really turned on. This was something that I knew I could do. I knew I would enjoy. It was much more about investing in a business and not so much about dealing with real estate. And that's what really appealed to me. And when I discovered that or started learning about that, I didn't buy any more single family, and I just went full steam ahead on the multifamily syndication space. So in a nutshell, that's really my journey. Like many of us, it's a journey. So yeah, any questions or where can I add some more value?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that was great. I feel like I remember my like light bulb moment. I feel like a lot of investors, especially commercial real estate investors, kind of have that same little light bulb where it's like, I can't believe I haven't been doing this more, or I haven't been doing, like, why am I just now finding out about this? And I feel like definitely like what you were saying with the Robert Kiyosaki, all those little purple books, they definitely help just kind of, I feel like, open your eyes in a way, or open your brain in a way that you really haven't thought about investing in a specific way, where it definitely changes your perspective on really what you can achieve, I think, as well. And I think that's a great point.
Yeah, the Kiyosaki books really change. It's your mindset and on how money works, how assets work, why you're investing, and then the potential, which, we look back at it now and it seems intuitive, but it's really not, because I remember that, reading it and saying, oh, okay, I understand now why real estate is such a good investment. Beyond just having somebody pay off a mortgage on a home, it's how it's scalable and how there's different ways to approach it. Yeah, so that little book has changed many, many, many lives.
Yeah, no, it has for sure. And the one thing I'll add too is, kind of growing up and, going throughout school, Aaron and I, we went to a public high school, and it's just something where you're going through school. They don't really teach you about these different opportunities that are out there in terms of getting into some of these investments. And really, like you guys keep saying, it's like a light bulb switch or an eye-opening opportunity, because when you're growing up, you're not even aware of the fact that that's, an opportunity that people can, pursue.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. And, I know Aaron mentioned it, the syndication space, it's talked of more and more now. It's more prevalent, or maybe it's just because I'm so involved in the space, but I didn't know about it. Like I had no idea that it was a thing until, I walked into a meetup and heard a syndicator talking about it. And like Aaron said, and probably you, Jacob, for yourself as well, looking back, why didn't I know about this sooner? That's all I could think about.
Yeah, and I would say once you kind of saw the opportunity in commercial real estate, what kind of path did you then kind of take from there, and what were the next steps that you really took?
Yeah, so once I, landed on commercial real estate, I started investing passively. So I think that's generally a, a good route for people to take just because it's a learning opportunity. It's you understand what it's about. You can see what the passive experience should be and what you enjoy about it. And really, that was when I first started. That was the main intent, was to invest passively and not necessarily be an active general partner. But once I became more involved in the space, I realized just how interesting I thought it was, how much I enjoyed it, how much I enjoyed being around the people, and really the potential there was behind it. So invested passively in a few deals, ended up joining a mentorship mastermind program, kept learning, kept networking, and just kept taking those steps forward, and with the goal of becoming an active sponsor. So it really comes down to learning all the steps of what's required, from market analysis to underwriting to meeting the right people. And, once one foot in front of the other, closed my first general partner deal. It was almost 2 years ago now. So it'll be 2 years in September.
Yeah, that's awesome, and I feel like a lot of people don't know that feeling or of really or even know the idea of actually investing in real estate, because like you said, I know a lot of people, whenever they think about investing in real estate, they think about, oh, just buying a single family rental and kind of being the landlord and everything like that, where it kind of turns into more of a job, just like an extra job where where you just have to keep up with the property, keep up with maintenance, and really don't think about the larger scale size of commercial real estate, such as apartments, because I know me and Jacob have kind of touched on this prior, but a lot of people just don't believe that they can get into those kind of deals and really just shut themselves out to it when it is a possibility of being able to come on as that passive investor and really receive all those benefits that come from commercial real estate while receiving that passive income that I know really everyone is looking for.
Yeah, it's really a powerful avenue that people can use because, I think like we've touched on, being a landlord is another full-time job. It requires a lot of time, a lot of skill, a lot of, a network of maintenance staff. And then the cash flow is honestly just not as reliable, because if your house is empty, for a few days or a few weeks, you're not getting anything from that. And every day that goes by, all you're thinking about is that how I need to get somebody else in there. But when you put it to scale and you have an apartment complex with 50, 100, 200 units, you can absorb that vacancy much easier. And everything just becomes a little bit easier with that scale that's involved. You can hire full-time maintenance, a full-time leasing agent, full-time management staff. So ultimately, what you are doing as a general partner is managing the business of the apartment and not managing the apartment itself.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And, for Aaron and I, that's where, when we first moved out here to Scottsdale, we were all in on the short-term rental idea. And we had some good momentum when we first got out here. We had two pretty quick, and then we quickly found out, like you were just talking about, if we don't have a booking for, let's say, a few days or a week, we're just kind of, thinking about what's next. How are we going to keep, scaling this? And it ultimately came to a point where, like you mentioned, it's going to be really hard to scale that business on a single family, scale. So, and in the back of our heads too, we were always, pursuing the apartment side of things too. So, yeah, I think that was a really good point in terms of the vacancy affecting. When you have those higher units, you can kind of absorb some of that vacancy and the ebbs and flows throughout the market.
Yeah, I think we all know it sounds like all of us can empathize with that feeling of a house sitting empty and just wanting somebody in there because it's just the cash flow just stops. And also just every time there's a maintenance request or something that needs to be fixed, it can eat up any positive cash flow pretty quickly. Whereas, when you're at scale, you can absorb those setbacks.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And then kind of going off that, I would say, what kind of other benefits would you say are come more into play once you get into commercial real estate instead of single family? What are the biggest benefits that you've kind of seen transitioning to apartment complexes?
Yeah, we can probably take this a couple different ways. On the, you know, on the passive side, there's just the whole opportunity to be a passive investor, which just does not exist on the single family side if you're doing it yourself. On the operator side, I would say it's also the opportunity to partner with people that have complementary skill sets that you have. Oftentimes, I'm sure there are people who do partner on single family, but in multifamily, you are truly working with the team. So it's still a small team, so you're still doing a lot, but you can find people that complement your skill set. So if you're not really into the numbers, if you don't, love the analysis, there's somebody else that does, and that's somebody that you can partner with. Similarly, if you don't enjoy operations, it's just not your game. You'd rather be underwriting or doing a market analysis. There's somebody that you can partner with that does enjoy the operations. So it's all about teamwork. It's, if you have a vacation to go on, there's a team behind you, and it's not only a great way to go further and really hone in on your strengths, but it's also, you get around some pretty amazing people. I don't know about you, but meeting people in this space, it's just they have a different mindset. They have a growth and abundance mentality that you don't find in a lot of other spaces.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I noticed really early on in my real estate career was whenever you're going to these conferences or connecting with these like-minded individuals, it's a different, I would say it's almost a different breed of people because I feel like one kind of breed that just wants to work day to day or work every day and kind of work for their paycheck. And then there's other people who kind of know the game and really know how the world works of having your money work for you, have investments work for you, and really scale to build a business. And then also on the flip side, whenever it comes to taxes, to really instead of, I know we mentioned this in a past episode for me and Jay, but I know some people just think of taxes and think, oh, I got to pay them. Like, that's just something I have to do. And you can use certain loopholes to your advantage. Let's say one investment vehicle is doing really well for you one year, you can use that write off in a different investment to ultimately decrease your taxable income. And there's just so many different variations and different ways of people just, I feel like, helping me see the world differently and just being that sponge of just accumulating that knowledge from everyone that I've kind of come around to in this industry. And I feel like the more people you talk to, the more you just grow, and it just helps unlock your mind. And it's really just an exciting process of trying to really just compete and really grow as much as these other leaders in this industry.
Yeah, I agree. You know, Aaron, I think you mentioned it. It is just like a different breed of people. It's uh, just the mindset of taking life into their own hands and plotting their own path and seeing what's possible and then going after it. It's inspiring and it's just a fun group to be around.
Yeah, and really, Amanda, I'd like to go back to that point of, like you said, with teamwork. And like you said, you might have a certain skill set that you could bring to to the table, but at the same time too, where maybe where you're lacking in some certain areas,
Hmm.
bring some people on to really build that team aspect. Because really, what Aaron and I have learned in our young entrepreneur careers, you can only get so far and on your own and on your own path until you have to, open up to the idea of bringing on other team members to increase your value and ultimately help drive your business to where you want to see it, 5, 10 years down the road. But kind of circling back to, I want to change the topic here a little bit, Amanda, and what we've talked about on our podcast is, maybe some of those people that are a little bit 50-50 kind of on the fence line of, hey, should I get involved in the world of, syndication? I guess, what is one like success story you could share to help, maybe push some people over the edge to, get into the game?
That's a great question. So I'll probably preface this with real estate syndication. I think it often gets touted as, you know, almost like anyone can do it, anyone can retire in 5 years. And to be honest, it's not complicated, it's not complex, but it's not easy, I would say. It is hard work and it does take some like time and dedication and just a long-term commitment because it's not an overnight success story. At least for most people, it's not. I think maybe there are exceptions to that, but for most people, it is just putting one step in front of the other and slowly getting to where you want to go. And it just takes time. And so I was working at becoming a GP for quite some time and putting in offers, and we had some setbacks with we had COVID happen, and then the markets, ballooned, and there's always fluctuations in the market and challenges that you're going to encounter. But I would say one of my biggest successes so far is, I closed on a 260 unit deal in Houston about a year and a half ago now, and partnered with a really great group. It's the same group that I invested with as a passive investor. So had the opportunity of, building and establishing and growing that relationship. And the deal is going well. It's operating. We're distributing to our investors. It's one of the few success stories at the moment right now with, happy investors, a positive GP team, and a performing asset. So it's staying with it if I wouldn't have stayed with it because a lot of people come and go in the space, but that gave me, just one more push of momentum to keep going and keep, plodding forward with, ultimately growing something really big.
I think that's great, and that's kind of, I don't know, definitely a story that we're looking for in our future as right now being limited in passive
Hmm.
investors and kind of working our way towards being a co-GP with
Hmm.
sponsors, hopefully in the near future. So even for us, I think that's a great story to really share of really how progressive it can happen, even for just daily workers and everything like that.
Hmm.
Of just being able to invest in these deals, I think is a great story as well, just to show that it is possible and that people are involved
Hmm.
in on these deals. Because I know maybe we've been talking about it, or maybe they hear about it as well and still just don't think about it, but it is it is what happens. Because I know,
Hmm.
even when I'm talking to friends and family that really aren't sure about commercial real estate investing or really don't know about it, just try to set that basic example of, okay, let's say there's 100 unit apartment complex in a nice area. Like, not one person is just going out and buying that property and running it themselves. Like, it's a team of
Hmm.
people, and I think once you have that great team together, it makes it a lot easier, and then it's a lot easier to start scaling, which is very beneficial.
Yeah, and successes build momentum as well. So I think most people in this space will say it's a slow start and there's a lot of ups and downs, but once you start building momentum, it's easier to keep going. But it's like I said, it's not easy, but it's not rocket science either. So
Yeah, so I wasn't sure if Jake was going to hop in there, but yeah, really just kind
yeah.
of going off that. I would say from a success story to really the biggest lesson that you've kind of learned throughout your commercial real estate investing career. What would you say that would be?
There's so many lessons. I think we all learn lessons every single day. And I don't know if I'd call it a lesson, but it's something that I have to lean into. And I keep having to remind myself is that no matter what the setbacks are, is that, just keep going and keep going and networking and learning, and don't just learn but do. And you're going to have to put yourself out of your comfort zone over and over and over again, but that's just what's required. And so I'm never surprised when I'm asked to do, or not asked to do, but I've realized that I need to do just one more thing that I didn't think I was going to need to do as part of this space. Everything from being on podcasts and YouTube to raising capital to, driving all over the country to visit properties. You never know what's next, but it's fun and it's exciting, and you just have to embrace it and keep moving forward.
Yeah, that's a really good point of, like you said, putting yourself in those uncomfortable situations because, in the moment it might be tough. Like, for example, when we first started this podcast, it wasn't something that I was thinking about a year or 2 years
Yeah.
ago. But,
Yeah.
when we first shot the first episode, it was definitely an uncomfortable feeling. But now that
Hmm.
we're on episode 5 here, I feel like the more you start to do it, you kind of get more settled in. You start to get a little more comfortable. And there's just always this saying that in the back of my head when I'm in an uncomfortable situation. It's from our high school football coach. He always used to say, "Get comfortable being uncomfortable,"
Yeah.
and that's something I've just kind of tried to carry throughout. Not only my professional career, but things that I do on my own as well. So, yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, I love that. I love that saying. It's get uncomfortable being uncomfortable. Or I think there's another similar one, if you're not scared, you're not growing, or something along those lines. So create those big goals and make yourself uncomfortable. And it means you are making progress and you're setting goals that are meaningful.
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes with, I know a lot of people who really think about investing are tend to be maybe risk averse, or on the other side of really not knowing. They want to just keep their money in an index fund or something safe and secure, that, or what they believe is safe and secure, but also don't know really. I think whenever I was in an interview for one of real estate broker jobs, I remember that the lead guy talking mentioned that real estate investing is one of the safest, most achievable ways to achieving wealth. And I just feel like a lot of people really don't know about that. And I feel like that's one of our main messages that we're always trying to get out there too is it is a safe, achievable investment, not just a crazy stock play or anything like that, where people, I feel like, need to maybe understand that it is a safer play because a lot of people, like we were just saying, is being uncomfortable. And whenever they get uncomfortable, they think it's risky and that something bad's going to happen. But you just have to be able to put yourself in those situations to, I mean, I want to say high risk, high reward, but it's really not that high risk with a high reward. So it's just kind of that same thing that you guys were talking about of being uncomfortable, I think is a huge note to make whenever you are, you know, either investing or doing really anything in general is very beneficial.
Yeah, I think to that point, Aaron, I think a lot of people hear headlines, and there was a GFC, which was quite some time ago, or they know someone who lost money in real estate, or they heard a story, and it's hard to get through that noise. They've heard a one-off story, but people seem to forget the person that lost in the stock market, or they seem to forget that they didn't, they don't look at their balance sheet or they don't look at their stock portfolio every day to see it go up and down. And so they let those stories or those instances or periods of time really fog their opinion on real estate, where, I think we all would all agree that over time, real estate is a good investment and it is safe and secure, and it's not a get rich quick. It is a build wealth slowly with a high probability of success. And so if you have time, your asset values do go up. It is when you get caught in an instance where you have too much debt, too much leverage, and can't sustain yourself. And those are the one-off instances that people hear about and then automatically call it a risky investment.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and really one of the main key takeaways that we're really trying to reach for our listeners, because I know we may have some newer investors or people who have investing their whole life, but really don't know where to put their money or where they want to put their money. I know even like our parents, they didn't even know about real estate investing until a few years ago. And it is that light bulb moment that we kind of started off by saying that I feel like everyone does have that at some point, and really just trying to help people find that light bulb moment before it is too late and before you're already almost cashing out on your 401k and everything like that. So I think that's the biggest point that we're really trying to push for our listeners, and to really get them into the world of commercial real estate investing, just to set them up better for their life.
Yeah, I think no matter who you are, I think you can benefit from developing multiple streams of income. Even if if you love your job and you think you're going to work at your job forever, it doesn't hurt. It can never be a downside to have just one more stream of income to come in case something happens, or in case you decide that you don't like your job, or or when you retire. But it doesn't necessarily have to be a retirement plan either. But it's it's hard for me to think of an instance where it would not be beneficial for someone. The only thing is if you have capital because it is an illiquid investment oftentimes, that does need to be considered. But, having the multiple streams of income is it's empowering, and it can change a person's life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like, that's a good spot to kind of wrap this up. I want to, obviously, Amanda, thank you for your time for joining us on today's podcast. We really appreciate, you taking time out of your day to share a little more about your success stories and, your background and where you came from. And then also at the same time too of, helping some of these new listeners out that may not be familiar about the world of commercial real estate investing. So, Yeah, thank you again for your time. We appreciate it. And I'll kind of kick it over to you guys if you guys have any closing remarks.
No, I'll just chime in to say a big thank you to both you, Aaron, and Jacob for having me on your podcast and your show. Hopefully your listeners get some value out of it, and keep learning and keep following the both of you, because you're here to educate and help people get started. And so I love what you're doing, and hopefully you can convert some people into some investors.